Well, hello, everybody. We are live again for the week. Hello, Destiny.
Hey, Lee, how are you?
I am good. And welcome, everybody, to Just Talk Live. It is our faith and justice talk show that Destiny and I have been so blessed to have in our lives, aren't we? It's like the
Yes,
joy of my week. It's the
coming to
joy of
you
my week.
live since April 7th, every Tuesday at 6 p.m.
Every Tuesday at 6 p.m. we have been here together, and we look a little different. We have a nice little platform now, our fancy little Just Talk Live logos and everything. So, Destiny, who do we have on the show today?
I'm excited, Lee. We have some awesome, I can't call them YAVs anymore because they have graduated from YAVs to become YAVas, which is Young Adult Volunteer Alums, who served in Tucson along with their awesome YAVA site coordinator that's going to be on our show today to talk a little bit about their YAV experience, why they felt called to join the YAV program, and also to discuss how they maneuvered and still persevered during COVID-19. So I'm so excited to have them on board with us tonight.
Awesome. And I was a young adult volunteer way back in the day, not way back in the day, but it's been a while since 2011 in Nashville, where I still live. And so this program is very near and dear to my heart. And I think it's one of the best things that the Presbyterian Church does. And so we are very excited to bring our guest on. So let's do that. Let's bring our guest on. So welcome, everyone. How's it going, everyone?
Good.
Welcome. Go ahead, Destiny.
Thank you, Lee. Again, thank you for joining us and being here and to share a little bit about your experience as your YAV journey and now becoming YAV alum. Congratulations on that. I know serving as a YAV isn't easy and it's challenging, and doing it through a pandemic, you all rock. So thank you. Thank you for coming. Yes, round of applause. I'm just saying. And to you, Allison, maneuvering all that and adjusting as a site coordinator and still allowing your YAVs to have that enriching experience. So if you all can please just introduce yourselves and just say a little bit about yourself, where you served as a YAV, and Allison, for you, a little bit about your site coordinator position. What is a site coordinator? And also, what called you to the YAV program? And we'll start with Katie, Haley, Allison for this order.
Wow. Okay. So I'm Katie. I am from a little town, Mason City, Illinois. And this is actually my second YAV year. I served as a YAV last year in Asheville, North Carolina. And this year I came to Tucson. And I knew right out of college I wanted to do a volunteer year. And I wanted to just get more of a broadening experience about the world around me and what was going on. And I really liked how the YAV program added this aspect of faith and intentionality to my service here and my service work. And so that's kind of what called me to the program in general. And then as I was finishing up my first year, I really wanted to dive into immigration. I knew that I was just getting started to find a political voice and political action and just social justice work. And so I wanted to continue that. And what better way to go serve on the border for a little while? So, yeah.
I'm Haley. I am originally from the Dallas area in Texas. I served at Community Home Repair in my time in Tucson, and at also known as Chirpa. And at that site, I got to work with low-income families in Tucson and Pima County, and we addressed health and safety needs through home repair. So that looked like doing plumbing for clients or building ramps to make their home more accessible, and a whole range of home repairs. For me, I grew up in a really active presbytery of Grace Presbytery in the Dallas area, and knew a lot of YAVs. And so it had always kind of been on my radar. And after college, I was an anthropology major. So people was kind of a big focus for me. And we looked a lot at just the different societal structures, and it focused a lot on like hearing people's stories and really kind of reading and hearing about hard things. And I think for me, after 4 years of that, I really wanted a chance to be doing and actively listening and not just reading about people's experiences. So that for me was a big reason why YAV felt like the place to do that.
My name is Allison, and I was a YAV in Tucson in 2010, 2011. So, Lee, that really feels like back in the day, or even earlier than 2011. And I've been in Tucson since then. Worked at a couple different nonprofit organizations, and just Tucson's a really special place. Being in the U.S.-Mexico borderlands is pretty special and different than where I grew up in Virginia. And so stayed here. 5 years ago, had the opportunity to apply to become the site coordinator for the Tucson Borderlands YAV program. My experience as a YAV was that this program completely changed my life, which I think should be the warning label on the program. That the motto of the YAV program is a year of service for a lifetime of change. And that is like not messing around. I had been, previous to my work as a site coordinator, had been engaged in experiential education around immigration and the border, and saw working with the YAV program as a way to unite that with my own like wrestling with the church and with faith and with the role of service and mission and ways that has been a positive and negative force in the world. And so it's really a privilege to now have, for 5 years, have the opportunity to walk alongside young folks like Katie and Haley as they do really amazing things.
Yeah, I always say that about the young adult volunteer program, is that they're not kidding when they say it's going to change you, because your eyes are open to many, many things. Some of us for the first time, and others not so. But I know in my case, my eyes were open to so much stuff that was happening here in Nashville, and I experienced so much in that year. And so I wonder, what new things have you been made aware of? What new things have you learned in this experience as doing this volunteer year? And we want to make sure everybody who is watching knows that a young adult volunteer does a year of service within the local community and within grassroots organizations that are partnering with the Presbyterian Church. And so I wonder, what have you learned, and what can you tell us that we need to know, maybe that we should know as well? So we'll go in the same order. So we'll start with Katie and Haley, and then Allison.
Awesome. I love that I'm always the first one to go. This is great, because most of the time I forget the prompt by the time I start, but it's all right. With that like common thread, I realized that I didn't talk about the work placement that I worked in this year. And I think that that's been a really big learning curve for me, and a growing curve. And so I'd like to include it now. So this year I worked for Keep Tucson Together, which is a legal aid clinic that is run through mostly volunteers. And it is to help provide attorney counsel and somebody to walk alongside the folks that are going through deportation proceedings. And so my year this year has really been about diving head on and head first through the immigration system, and really realizing the complexity and just the unknown in that. I came from the Midwest, where most of my life I've just had this common misunderstanding about who is crossing the border and why, and what's really going on and the issues that are there. And there's a lot of fear of terrorism. There's a lot of fear of people stealing jobs, people stealing wages. And I think my 2 years tied together in that there's this like overarching fear-based model that drives people to do unthinkable and crazy actions, right? In Asheville, I worked with the homeless population, and realizing that there too, there was this fear of like, well, people are just lazy. They don't want to work. They don't want to like provide for themselves. That's why they're homeless, right? And I was serving in Asheville, which is one of the #1 most gentrified cities in the nation. And we're seeing that people just don't have the resources to afford living. They don't have support system. They don't have people that can stand up for them. And so really both YAV years have taught me what importance there is in a support system, and how often I have the privilege of being able to call mom or call dad, or even just to call my little brother and be like, hey, I'm really short on this gas bill this month, or I'm really short on my phone bill. Can you keep it up while I serve these 2 years? And just like how much of a resource and network I have that other people don't have. So if you tie in just the support systems, and then this aspect that we fear what we don't know, and so much is unknown because of language barriers, or because people don't want to understand, or because we want to just believe what the media is telling us, it gets really complicated and really dicey. And so, yeah, I think those are the two biggest aspects that I've gained. And on the touch of a year of service for a lifetime of change, we have been experiencing this past month. It's really hard to watch a movie while enjoying the movie. There are so many hidden issues of like anything in our comedies, in our tragedies, and everything we watch. There's some kind of hidden social justice issue that it's gotten really hard to watch a movie the same way after serving a YAV year. And so I'm really starting to understand and live into this a year of service for a lifetime of change, because I am definitely seeing, even in the past couple of days, as not serving a YAV anymore and being a YAV alum, and transitioning into life unstructured, I'm going to say, or unplanned, just kind of like living my own life, just how many things have changed and how my brain has just changed focused. So it's kind of crazy. Haley.
Yeah. For me, there's been like a lot of basic, like I am working at a place that has like a lot of manual labor, plumbing, electrical stuff that I had no idea what I was getting into, but has been great. And I've had such a supportive community at Chirpa that is just so willing to teach. So that's been a really cool environment to learn in. But even in doing that work, part of it, I think, in my brain has started with just what I studied in college, and then even more so when we talked about at orientation, just thinking of all the structures that are in our society that oppress people. And that was something that in my work I've seen time and time again, just the ways that why the different families we're working with aren't able to afford just something really, something that takes us maybe an hour to do, or maybe a day. And a lot of it, a lot of clients are in injuries and have a lot of like, there's a big part of like just health and not having accessible health care. Really affecting how they're able to spend their money and able to have utilities that work. I think another thing that I've seen a lot for clients is just being on Social Security that, again, doesn't allow them to have a livable paycheck, to kind of choose between getting groceries and having a cooler that works in the summer when it's really hot in the desert. So yeah, it's been interesting to see like something very technical of a job that I've learned a lot doing, but has also really shown just the society that we live in, and how it affects people.
What have I learned in like my 8 YAV years? You know, one that I serve, 5 as site coordinator, a couple other ones here and there. I think I would name 2 things just from participating with the program and observing. The first is that I think that we can almost never do too much self-reflection, particularly trying to get to know ourselves, that we live in a society that is not set up to empower us to connect deeply with who we are as human beings. And like our society being like US dominant culture, shaped by and rooted in racial capitalism, white supremacy, colonization, that like we are divorced from ourselves and not trained or given space to like check in with our feelings or identify our feelings. And so it's been a blessing to have the opportunity to do that and to hold that space for YAVs over these years, to the point that by our last meeting, at the end of the year, I asked the YAVs if they wanted to, you know, do one last check-in for old time's sake, and they just said, no, thank you. And then I think the other piece, we're doing anti-oppression education for 5 years, is that I've learned is that we will never be good white people. That like with the anti-racism focus of the program, it probably shouldn't take me 5 years to learn that, but I learn it again every day, that like as much as we want to try to be better constantly, we'll never like reach the plateau of being one of the good ones and can stop. But that that work for justice is lifelong.
Thank you, Allison, in naming that. And just, I was not a YAVA, did not do the program, but I mean, my YAViversary is tomorrow, and I will say that I have learned. I know, right? Shoot, the program's a year of service, literally for a lifetime of change, and being an employee is no different. The program has helped me to realize the spaces where I too, even though I'm a Black woman who's heterosexual, have privileges and live into white supremacy on a daily basis, and really, like you were saying, Allison, to do that internal reflection with even in my Black skin on ways how I am complicit. So for a plug for the program, that is something that you will really dive deep in learning, no matter what site you are at, about ways and systems on not only systems, but how we as individuals are complicit in white supremacy. But this question that I'm going to ask is going to be more kind of relaxed, hopefully. And well, maybe not for Allison, but for Allison, I want you to talk about, I always mix up the word, I think it's binational. You are a binational, your site is a binational site. So I want you to just talk a little bit about that. And I know I had the privilege of visiting Tucson and seeing Haley and Katie at their placements and working with power drills and seeing all of the files that Katie has to manage and weave through without a technical system. Being someone who worked in the law profession, I'm like, I don't know how this girl does it. But and Katie doing, like she was saying, Haley doing like the labor manual part of the job is very impressive. So hats off to you and the skills you learned. But I just want to know, outside the program, how was life in Tucson for Haley and Katie? And for Allison, can you just explain like your 10-year track in Tucson. What led you to stay there? I know the program called you there, but why did you decide to build roots there? Can you talk a little bit about the binational part of it, being this place, as some people would say, like the border is messy, but it's really beautiful because it leaves space to create and grow, and borders don't always have to be negative. That's something that I really learned in Tucson while visiting you all and kind of took home with me. So I just want you to talk a little bit about that, Allison, and then for Katie and Haley, a little bit less, like how was your life in Tucson? And we'll go Haley, Katie, Allison. We'll pick on Haley first this time.
Yeah, I think especially kind of as I've mentioned what my work is, it doesn't really seem like it has much to do with immigration, which it doesn't. Not that living in the borderlands doesn't affect the clients that we're working and how that is part of their life as well. But yeah, I think being in Tucson and in the borderlands, just that aspect of the program really brought in more to just what I was getting to do at work at Chirpa. So we had 4 of us in the house in Tucson, and then we had Hannah who lived in Agua Prieta on the border on the Mexico side. And so that was really kind of cool to have a binational community. And before coronavirus, I would say we were in Agua Prieta probably once a month. And so that was nice to still have that connection with Hannah, but also learn more about that community there. And yeah, we did a week-long delegation with the Albuquerque YAVs as well. And that was a really intense week, but being in that community and being in the borderlands, it's been hard to learn about the immigration system, but the actual border community itself is just really beautiful, and been a place where I didn't know I was going to see hope, but has just been a really powerful community to witness how they talk about faith and justice and the way that it's connected. And we got to go to binational posada right around Christmas time. And that was really cool to see through the lens of the border, thinking about the story of Jesus being rejected at Mary and Joseph being rejected at the inn, and still Jesus came to bring salvation to the world. And so even as we have a country that continues to reject people that are looking to just have better lives and safety for their children, there are going to be people that show us how to really connect and be community and be a better world, I think. So that's been a really powerful part of being in the borderlands and being a binational site.
And Haley, just for people who might not fully understand what binational means or what the borderlands means, can you just explain where is geographically Agua Prieta, and also what is the borderlands that we're talking about? Like, can you just explicitly name it for people who are watching, just in case they might not know what we're talking about?
Yeah, so Tucson is in Arizona, so it's a border state. So Agua Prieta is right on the border. It's about, is it 90 miles from Tucson? Or no, more? It's more than 90. Anyway.
In Mexico, though, right?
Yeah, it's Agua Prieta.
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours, long time. But yeah, Agua Prieta is the Mexico side, and then Douglas is the U.S. Arizona side.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Katie?
Yeah. Thank you for going first this time, Haley. I appreciate it. Yeah. No, it just gives me time to think and reflect. I was telling Allison last week last weekend when we were saying goodbye to the program and just saying goodbye to each other, that I feel like I've done so much reflection over this past month that I feel like almost every time I'm lying, just because I get a different story and a different side of things. It feels like I've learned a lot of lessons in the 11 months I've had here, and some of them are interconnected, some of them are not connected at all. But it's nice to be able to start piecing those things together and to understand. Destiny, I really appreciate what you said about realizing the beauty in the border and in the borderlands. I think that's been one of the biggest journeys I've had. And I'm really impressed that you could do it in the week or so that you were here, in the day that I got to see you, right? Because I think it's been one of the biggest struggles I've had. I moved to Tucson and I was very immediately depressed. I missed the trees and the running water, and it was really hard to get acclimated to the desert. And then to also understand and to know that I was studying immigration in this place. And so to me, the desert just brought this very big image of death and destruction. And it wasn't a pretty place, right? It was very outwardly opinionated about our government and what's going on. And it was just the landscape itself reflected the issues and the struggles, I think, that the communities are facing here. And I would say that it wasn't until about Christmas time that I really began to open up and to understand that this is more than a place of death and destruction. I miss the snow a lot at Christmas. I'm a big snow girl. And everybody was always telling me all the time, oh, thank goodness you're having a non-white Christmas. And oh my gosh, that's great. And I was like, no, I miss it. But I think it's one of the most truest Christmases I've had, based mostly around the experience that Haley was sharing about with the Binational Posada. But we also attended a church service at Southside, a Christmas Eve candlelight service. And it wasn't until I was standing there, I think, that I really started to begin to understand the beauty and the complexity around the desert. Southside put on the generic Christmas story with little kids playing Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus, but there was also an adult version of that same story where a woman who had given birth in the desert earlier that year played Mary, her baby was Jesus, and Joseph wasn't around. Joseph was in the detention center called Eloy, not too far from us, and he was a client that my work placement was representing. And so I'd gotten to know their story well, but to see them up there and to see them playing the Holy Family was just like a different stab at the heart, right? And when I think about religion and the aspect it plays in social justice and immigration, what we're called to do, I have a hard time believing that we're just meant to sit still and be quiet, right? To be the frozen chosen Presbyterians that many say we are. And so I think seeing this church really begin to understand and make the connections about what we were seeing in Mexico with the Binational Posada, right? This idea that we are not accepting the Holy Family of today, that when we were at the Binational Posada, there was a lot of questions about, if Jesus was to return, what would he look like? Who would he be? Who do we see Jesus as today? And just that disconnection that we as citizens are making is crazy to me. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stop there.
Just hearing Haley and Katie talk about your experience of Borderlands and binationality throughout the year, I just feel like, oh, that's it. That's the thing. That's what it's about. So I'll just say that I came to Tucson from Virginia, grew up in Virginia, and I do not miss the snow or the cold. It's really nice here. It's, I put on my sweater when it's 60 degrees because I get a little chilly. I'm just like fully in on desert life. I just fell in love with the desert and the mountains, and Tucson is a city in a valley surrounded by mountains, and that this is a place that I think makes you work for it. That you got to learn the names of the cactus so you know like what plant to appropriately curse when you're pulling it out of your feet, or you have to like go hike to find water because it's not just flowing through the city. And just the sense of like preciousness of those pieces, I think is really wonderful here. As well as like building human community has been really good. I wanted to say a little bit more about the binational nature of our site, that we're the only, a little plug that we're the only binational site in the Young Adult Volunteer Program in the Presbyterian Church. Really, we're a binational site because of what Haley and Katie just talked about, where that's the best illustration. From Tucson, 60 miles, you're at the U.S.-Mexico border. And we place YAVs in Agua Prieta, which is southeast of Tucson, by about 2 hours. That we are, so we place YAVs in the United States and in Mexico, but being within 100 miles of the border, like when you look at a map, a border looks like a really clear and distinct line, but that's not how it is in reality. That the border is this kind of threshold, this liminal space. That also within 100 miles of a border, of the U.S. border, is the Border Patrol's area of operation. It's a region that the ACLU calls the Constitution Free Zone. The border is a place that Gloria Ansaldúa calls a herida abierta, an open wound. And that the border also is a place of encounter. One of our partners at Frontera de Cristo talks about how the border between two biomes, two like ecosystems, is the place where there's the most biodiversity. And so this both and of like of pain and death, that people die crossing through this desert that I love so much, because of policies that our government has actively chosen to implement in order to push people into more dangerous terrain. And so we talk about ourselves as binational, both because we place YAVs in the US and in Mexico, because we're in a place of exchange here in the borderlands, and because we want to embrace the both and of the beauty and the pain, of the hardship and the life that is available here in this desert. And I would just name that, particularly as a Christian program and a program of Christian mission, which so often has been and is a tool of imperialism and colonization, that we have to name that we are both on unceded Tohono O'odham land, where people were forcibly removed so that we could be here. And we are in a place that just maybe 150 years ago was Mexico, that our country bought, for a given value of consenting purchase. So it's like geography, history, what we think about, and kind of the lens that we use is to talk about ourselves as binational.
I think a lot of people may not realize that the nuances of all of this, about what borderland is, all these kinds of things, because we are in such like a polarized time in our history. There is no like want to understand it, to really hear people out and to really understand what it is, and where people are located in the context around it. So I appreciate that very much. And that's one of the things that I appreciated about the YAV program, is that you did learn that. You did learn that everything that you hear about a certain place or a certain topic is not as, it is just not as clear as people make it out to be, what is right and what is wrong. And all of these things. So I do appreciate that about this program, is that it really does create a way in which young people can really learn about the context of a lot of issues that we're talking about. And I'm going to put a plug in. So the Presbyterian Church USA is currently advertising and putting it out there that we're going to be doing a week of action, specifically when it comes to racial justice, and dismantling racism and white supremacy, both within our denomination, as we are all very much aware that the church has always been a part of perpetuating systemic racism and white supremacy. And also speaking to what is happening right now when it comes to police brutality and the killings of our Black and brown siblings. And so we are in a moment right now in the church that is trying to do this work, the work that the YAV program has been doing for a long time. And I wonder, and I think the church should be listening to young voices all the time. That doesn't necessarily happen a lot. We're not invited to the table a lot in these conversations, but as you can see, and whoever is watching this, that young people are doing so much work in this country. I mean, you see it here, you're seeing it everywhere. And so I wonder what you would say to the church right now as to what the vision should be. And you can speak to your own context and the things that you've worked in. But what should the church be right now? And I think that this would be a great space to say that because I know people are listening. I know you're listening out there because we know you watch at church. You've told us. And so I hope you're listening because I do think it is important that we listen to young voices like ours. So we'll start with Katie. I'm going to turn it back to you to start. And Allison, of course, you can answer this too. But we'll do Katie, Haley, and then Allison.
Cool. So I'm still learning exactly what the church can do and is called to do, but I think the biggest thing is to not be afraid, right? I think, I don't know, I'm hearing a lot of things right now, and I'm seeing a lot of things about people being afraid of losing funding, of losing connections, of upsetting other people. And it shocks me, right? Because as people of faith, we're called to live by a moral code. And we are following stories and rereading a book that was written 2,000 years ago and trying to follow the lessons in it, right? And these lessons are so much about accepting one another and accepting the stranger and accepting the people that don't look like you, but we're still struggling to grasp that, right? And we're having such a struggle that we're turning the words into weapons, and we're really using it as a further way to divide us and to differentiate us instead of to bring us together, which I personally believe is what God has intended in these stories. And so if I'm looking at history books and I'm learning through school and through interactions with people, just the ways that it's morally wrong and how we're seeing the ways in which we as historians and if people have gotten things wrong and we're still making those same mistakes, I think really what we're failing to understand and to grasp is that we're being called to act. And there's hymns about it, there's scripture about it, there's so many things about this action and this call to action that we have, but we're letting fear of the unknown stop us, right? I'm going to put in a little plug about movies again. We watched Frozen 2. It came out during our YAV year, and we were all just so shocked, right? This is a Disney movie meant for children, and it's all about vocational discernment, which is one of the biggest pillars of the YAV community. Where does God call you to be, and what road does that look like? And here we have all of these songs, and Elsa and Anna are going at it about learning their place in the world and how they don't get it right at first, but they keep on trying, right? There's that little scene where Elsa is like shocked at the fact that she sang Let It Go once. And she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. But it was part of her growing process, right? And so as people, I think we're always continued to keep growing, and it shouldn't be, I've learned most in my YAV years about being silent is doing more harm than getting it wrong, right? Because getting it wrong, you're allowed to be taught and to be told that, hey, this is the wrong way and you should keep going. And this is you're allowed to be malleable like clay, and you're allowed to transform into something different. And so being quiet and being silent isn't helping anybody because you're not allowing yourself to be taught. And so I think the YAV program does a really great job in nurturing us to talk about our feelings and to talk about our struggles, because that's the only way we get to learn from each other. I myself am really bad about learning my struggles and confronting them. And then once I do, I don't know how to fix them. And so it takes constant communication and talking to one another to confront that, I think. So as far as exact action steps, I don't know, but overall, I feel like the church really needs to step out of this place of fear and this place of just being scared of losing things instead of looking into what we can grow and what we can really adapt to. There's always action steps online. Listen to the people of color, listen to voices of color. They're telling you what to do. They're telling you to contact your senators. They're telling you to talk about things. And if you don't feel comfortable talking about things, look it up, right? Do some research and figure out what you need to say. A lot of the scripts are written out for us of exactly what needs to be said. And so I think just getting over the fear of not wanting to say the wrong thing and just following what we have is really important.
Yeah, it's a big question. And yeah, I think that I guess what I've really learned from this YAV year has been a lot about intentional community, and what I hope the church continues to strive to look like. Yeah, I feel like this year has pushed a lot to listen to my housemates' needs, listen to clients' needs, and not just assume them. And I think that's what we're really called to be doing when we're called into community. And when we're called to be part of the church is not just think we know what's best for each other, but really listen. Yeah, and I think following Jesus is a lot about pushing back on these just the powers in our systems and fighting for the oppressed. And we follow and worship Jesus, who was killed by lawmakers. And yeah, so I think that's the important example that we're supposed to be following, of really doing this justice work and holding people accountable and standing up for each other. Yeah.
I think if we as the PCUSA are going to continue being a church that follows Jesus, we have to let go of some of the things that we think make us Presbyterian, or that we've counted on to make us Presbyterian, and not just let go of, but actively divest from and move away from. And I'm thinking particularly about being decent and in order, and our idolization of doing things according to polity and Robert's Rules of Order have meant that we sacrifice justice in order to follow the rules. And I think we need to let go of that. That it's time for us to join the riots, as well as be present in hospitals and funeral homes and churches and homeless encampments. I'm also reminded when I think about like the church that I dream of, I'm reminded of a video that we watched, the Abs and I watched earlier this pandemic season, about coronavirus capitalism with Naomi Klein, who said in that video, paraphrasing, whenever you hear someone in government ask, how much is that going to cost? You should understand that they're saying, how will we profit from that? Or who will profit from that? And so I think that is a good reminder for us as the church, that whenever we are trying to think about the financial implications, whenever we're asking, okay, what are the financial implications of that OGA, that we should understand that what we really mean is, how are we going to profit from that? Or who's going to profit from that? And that profit should not be what it's about. But we need to divest from our endowments and invest in the gospel.
They
Amen,
preaching,
amen, amen.
they preaching Destiny. They're
I know.
preaching today.
Oof. Amen.
Yes.
Amen. And Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did not go to seminary either, right? See, and look how God uses people to deliver a strong message. Amen. And that's something, I know you didn't ask me the question, Lee, but that's something that we need to move away from. Just because you went to seminary, no shade to anybody who did, does not mean you're the
That's
only one that
true.
gets the gospel right. Because I see Allison work
That is
in meetings,
true.
okay? And she
No.
brings a
I know
profound
many preachers
voice.
that don't have MDivs.
So,
I'll tell you that.
mm-hmm. But thank you all for lifting those voices up and those concerns to the church. And one thing that I always say about our program is that it was Matthew 25 before Matthew 25 became a thing. And really, like Lee was saying, if the church really wants to live into this congregation vitality, structural racism, and systemic poverty, they really need to look inwardly and look at the 25 plus years that the YAV program has been sustaining and doing the work, and speak to some of those alumni and really try to learn what how this program is structured, how not only is it hopefully changing the lives of the young adults who are engaged, but how we are being the church that I believe that Christ and God has called us to be. So I had to put that plug in there for our program, because I always say it, no matter where I'm at and what setting, if someone gives me a platform, we are Matthew 25 Church. We demonstrate Matthew 25 before Matthew 25 became a hot
And Destiny,
topic.
what is the Matthew 25 for
so my
those
next,
who may not know what Matthew 25 is?
That's a good question, Lee. So Matthew 25, and you can help me pick up where I'm wrong, Mr. Seminary student, is basically this new mandate. Well, not so much new, maybe a year old, that the Presbyterian Church is trying to live into, about the scripture, the verse Matthew 25, and really focusing around the least of these. And like I said, and they're focusing on 3 pillars of vital congregation, structural racism, and systemic poverty are the pillars of the Matthew 25 initiative. And churches can go online to become a Matthew 25 church. You can sign up in your Matthew 25 church, but what I'm calling churches to do, at least the PCUSA ones who are going to sign up, really think about how you're going to be intentional about being a Matthew 25 church. Like Allison said, the work doesn't stop at just signing up and doing a couple projects. It's an ongoing process to really be what the church that God is calling us to be, and how we will live into that every day. And that work is not going to just arrive, in our lifetime. So again, YAV program is a Matthew 25 church. If you want to learn more about Matthew 25, look at what the YAV program is doing. Read the blogs of the young adult volunteers. Ask them questions. Look at this video. And if you feel so inclined to, you can donate to the individual YAVs, to the national sites, or to the program overall. I had to put that in there, Lee.
Are you good?
Since you
There's
asked.
someone also posted a link in the comments just now about Matthew 25. So whoever's listening to this, there is a link in there about getting the details to what a Matthew 25 church is, if you're not aware of that. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Lee. So my next question for you all would be, so as you know, Just Talk Live is a faith and justice talk show, but it's really geared towards young adults, to have a platform not only for young adults to listen, but for their voices to be heard, and to come and speak on social justice issues. What would you say, well, this is going to be twofold. What would you say to the young adults who are listening and viewing in today around the social justice climate of the United States? And what is one message that you want the older generation to, I guess, debunk about millennials? Because I think we're all millennials on the line. Yeah, so what would you say to young adults who are trying to get involved in social justice issues? and how to really be engaged. And what is one thing that you wish that the older generation will understand about this movement that they say that young adults are engaging in or disrupting the system?
Want to start with Haley?
Allison. I'm gonna go with Allison. We'll make Allison go first. We won't pick on Haley because that was a lot.
Okay, so I'm an introvert. I'm professionally, you know, I'm an extrovert, but in my real life, I'm an introvert. And particularly, I mean, now I never leave the house. It's great. I mean, kind of. But when we are allowed to emerge from our cocoons again, I can remember the fear of like, okay, I want to get involved in this group or public meeting. Surge is having a public meeting, or there's this protest, or there's a group, Black Lives Matter is having a rally before the city council, and just feeling really scared about going by myself to a place where there's a lot of people who I don't know. Particularly things I think like, yeah, I'm in favor of Black Lives Matter. I don't know anything about the city council budget or whatever. And so my message to like folks of any age, but I guess especially young folks who are thinking about how to get engaged is like, it's awesome if you can find a buddy to go to things with. And because particularly if you're a white person, we have to show up and we have to we have to show that we are trustworthy by continuing to show up. And so showing up is super important, even though it can be super scary. And if you can't find a buddy, like it is totally okay to start out by going to a rally and just like stand at the back, and you don't have to say anything or talk to anybody. Just like be there, or go to a meeting and sit in the corner and don't ask any questions. That's okay. Just like be there. And then maybe next time you'll want to ask a question. And maybe the time after that, you'll want to like chant mildly. And maybe the time, you know, it's okay to show up in the ways that feel okay to you. And I think to older folks, like, the thing that is coming to mind is like, just to say that like young folks are longing to learn from your wisdom and experience, and like want to hear the stories of things that have gone before. And we might not be good at asking for those things or receiving them, but for us as a people, as the people of God, to get where we want to go, it will take all of us, and we need to know where we've been. Haley, do you want to go next?
Yeah. I think maybe kind of to both young people and older people. I know as I've continued to dig into like how I want to be a part of this justice work, I've had to like really reflect and unlearn a lot about what I think about young people talking and pushing back on what older people are saying or what they've been taught from people of authority. Yeah, I think underestimating young people is not is something that just doesn't foster a good community. I think knowing that young people have just as much to say is really important. And just the more that you talk and the more that you get comfortable and learn and read and talk to other people, I think that just continues to grow your voice and your thoughts and what you think about these different issues, and just better learn how to show up and be in community. Yeah.
And Katie, I know you cut out for a second. If you don't want to answer the question, that's okay. But if you do, then we want to hold space for you to answer that.
Awesome. Yeah. I think I have answered this a little bit in previous things that I've been saying, but I think baseline, just letting go of the fear that holds people back. I know, as a young person, I have been working through therapy lately and been realizing how constantly adults shut younger folks down and out of the conversation due to lack of life experiences or lack of knowledge about things. But we are just emerging from college, from high school, from wherever we are in life, right? And we have just freshly learned all of these history things and teachings. And I think one of the best things that older generations and adults could do is to support us in the decisions that they've helped us culminate, right? That we didn't gather this information and we didn't learn this information for nothing, and we learned it from them, respectively. And so how do we continue to grow and to experience as young people the world if we're constantly shut down and told that we just don't know anything? Because really, in retrospect, we know a lot of things. And we've been learning and we've been growing and we've been given that chance because of our support systems that we have, or the connections that we have, or the spaces that we get to do that in. And so I think, giving us the benefit to have those conversations and to let conversations be had. It's great.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all so much. And another thing that I think people don't realize is that all y'all live together, right? And except for Allison. Allison doesn't live with YAVs at the site, but they all do live in intentional community together. That's what we did when we were YAVs. And that's a whole nother learning process in itself. So not only do you really learn about what's going on in your context, you do learn how to live with people and have uncomfortable conversations and have those kinds of just those experiences as well. So I wanted to point that out too before we closed, that it is a very a holistic way of going about learning. Is that you really are living with people whom you have never met before, and I will tell you right now, some of those people are my best friends, and it was a life-changing experience for me to live with people I didn't really know very well. It was the first time in my life to do that, and so I wanted to throw that out there too. But we do want to thank you, Destini. Do you have any last comments that are burning on your heart?
No, but I did want to allow them to 30 seconds or so, because we're running short on time, to just do a last minute closing remark. If you all have anything you want the audience to share that Lee and I didn't capture, and if not, you can pass.
I have to go first. My closing remark is, take a deep breath and go tell somebody how you feel. This is how you feeling today, and listen to them say how they feel, and then get back to work. And that's basically the whole YAV program right there. In that's what we do for a year. So apply. You can still apply for the coming year, and join us.
Awesome. Haley or Katie, do y'all have any last minute comments?
Just appreciate the chance to reflect. That's what we've been doing kind of the past year, but a lot the past few weeks, thinking about how we continue to process this intense year. And each time the chance to reflect with other people is really helpful. So I appreciate this time.
Awesome.
Yeah, I second what Haley said. I really appreciate it. I feel like with COVID-19, we haven't gotten to reflect as much or visit as many churches and reach out as what we YAVs do in the past. And so I really appreciate this space to come together and to share thoughts. I'm also one for discussion. And so if anybody watching, follow me on social media, find me. I would love to have conversations about this, honestly. And so, please reach out and let's keep discussing, because I think that's how change happens and that's how connections happen, is by conversation. Yeah, an hour goes by way too fast. We need to talk more. But yeah, go forth. Adelante.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all again, and for your service as well, for your year and whatever you decide to do, what's next, wherever the Spirit leads you. And thank y'all again for this. This was great. Next week, we will be back because we're always back. We will be back next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to be talking about academia and through a racial lens, racism within academia, with two professors that I had the privilege of being taught by. So that is next week. And so until then, Destiny.
Lee, I was trying to type this, but my internet is acting wonky. Can you put 2 little mini plugs in before we close? One for the concert that we're going to have to close us out, and also one more plug for Action Week, because why not?
Yeah, so we will end this season. We are coming back. We are not ending this show, but we are coming back with. We are ending season 1 of this show with a concert, a virtual concert with musicians whom we know and around, and also with leaders from Youth Rising Coalition, and creating a way to donate to Youth Rising Coalition and to offer space to buy some of the products that these awesome leaders in Baltimore are doing and creating. And so we are teaming up with Youth Rising Coalition and ending our season with a big virtual concert. And we're really excited about that. And that will be September the 1st that we will end our season. And we don't know when we're going to come back. We're thinking November, December, but we're not really sure. But we will be back then. And then we are, just to reiterate, that the week of action through the Presbyterian Church USA, August the 23rd through the 30th, I believe, are the dates, 24th through the 30th. And I think we lost our co-host Destiny, but she will be back, and we will be back next week. So until then, we will see you then.